are really some key questions that Bob Ferguson has not been made to answer, specific to his record. And so I put a list of 15 together. We did send it, Nicole, correct? You sent it to the Ferguson campaign because we already told them when they told us we're not going to answer your questions anymore, Brandi. We already said, okay, we're going to send them anyway. If you'd like to answer, great. If not, so be it. So I put out on Patreon and Locals, it's open though, there's no paywall, 15 questions Bob Ferguson should answer before Election Day. And my call was really to the media to say, hey, here are 15 good questions that I think that Bob Ferguson should be asked to answer. They're fair. They're not biased, I don't think. They're not inherently political in nature. They just speak to his record of things he's done or hasn't done. And so I hope that there is some media outlet out there that will take me up on this and will pose these questions to Bob Ferguson before ballots start to go out. So you can go read the full 15 questions. I'm not going to go through all of them. I do want to go through a few to the points that I made previously. Number 9 on drug abuse. This to me is one of the fundamental issues. I think that it is a disqualifying thing as a gubernatorial candidate to say you want to legalize hard drugs given the extent of our drug epidemic. I think that's disqualifying, yet in an April 2021 interview on KUOW, Bob Ferguson urged state lawmakers to, quote, eliminate criminal penalties associated with possessing a non-commercial amount of drugs. So I asked in question 9, given the extent of our state's drug overdose crisis and the failure of a similar experiment in Oregon, do you still believe the legislature should move to decriminalize deadly drugs like fentanyl? Yes or no? That's a very simple question. Also on the crime front, again, I think there are things he needs to answer to when it comes to his record. Question 4, crime and disorder. In the summer of 2020, you did not speak out publicly during or after riots and looting in downtown Seattle, where police cars were lit on fire and how high-powered police rifles were stolen. You also did not speak out during the month-long occupied protest zone on Seattle's Capitol Hill, where several people died and an entire police precinct was rendered inoperable. As the state's chief law enforcer, please explain why you chose to stay silent during such a profound period of lawlessness. Fair question? I think so. Also on police pursuits on this topic, earlier this year, you told King 5 News you did not support a bill passed by Democrats in 2021 that dramatically limited police pursuits. There is no record of you voicing that opposition in 2021, 2022, or 2023. Given that you weighed in publicly on other legislation during those 3 years, why did you not take a public position on police pursuits until the law was fixed via initiative in 2024? That's fair as well. Someone should definitely press him on that. I also threw in a gun control question because we know gun control has been a primary push for Bob Ferguson. He's behind some of the biggest gun control bills that have passed in Olympia. I think that the media should ask him something like this. Despite gun control laws spearheaded by you and your office, gun-related crimes have spiked in Washington state in recent years, including the number of shots fired, shootings on highways, and homicides committed with guns. With more gun control in Washington state than ever before, why do you believe it isn't having the desired effect on crime? That is a fair question. It deserves an answer from the frontrunner to be the next governor of Washington state. There's also a couple questions in here on lowering costs. You remember we talked about it last week. Bob Ferguson came out with his first ad of the campaign, and one of his priorities in it was to lower costs for families. And I thought, that's interesting. So a couple questions on that. Can you name one tax or tax increase passed during the 3 terms of Inslee's administration that you did not support? Just one. Just one, Bob Ferguson. One tax or tax increase that you did not or do not support. And also a specific question on capital gains. This has the potential to impact every single Washingtonian who owns a home. Currently, Washington's capital gains tax excludes profits from the sale of someone's primary home. Would you veto any bill that seeks to include profits from the sale of a primary home as capital gains? Because I've told you, if capital gains survives the initiative in November, Democrats will move very quickly to lower the threshold for who has to pay the capital gains tax. Remember, they've said it's the richest of the rich, it's the richest of the rich. That is an absolute money grab for them. And they will lower it and lower it and lower it until when your grandma goes to sell her home, the home that she bought in the 1980s, that she's built up all this equity in, that she's going to use to retire, they're going to tax her capital gains on that to the tune of 7.5%. That's where this is going. That's where this is going. So if he doesn't support that, I think it's very fair to ask him right now, would you commit to vetoing any effort to make someone's primary home, the sale of that home, subject to the capital gains tax? And finally, let me hit one more because I think this is the all-encompassing thing on this status quo comment he keeps saying. He keeps saying, I've never been satisfied with the status quo. Question 15, in what way would a Bob Ferguson administration be fundamentally different than the Jay Inslee administration? If you can give me one way, hell, give me 3 if you think that you're not the status quo. But I'll settle for just one way that you believe your administration, Bob Ferguson, would be fundamentally different than the Inslee administration. And I have to believe that the answer is not going to be very satisfying.